A confidential report from Buckingham Palace tonight has sent shockwaves through Britain's royal circles. Multiple palace insiders confirm that the Princess of Wales, Catherine, held a private audience with King Charles III in which she made a firm yet respectful request, one that could reshape the royal household ahead of her own coronation as future Queen Consort. According to those briefed on the exchange, the meeting took place in the King's study late last week, lasting nearly an hour. Described by one witness as calm, serious, and deeply personal, the discussion centered on the growing involvement of Queen Camilla's family in royal life. She didn't raise her voice, an aide who was present told us. She spoke as a daughter-in-law and as a servant of the crown. She said she wished to protect the integrity of the monarchy, not challenge it. Catherine reportedly told the king, "Your Majesty, I speak with the greatest respect, but I believe the royal household must remain distinct. Those not born of the bloodline should not carry the weight of royal duty. It is not exclusion, it is protection." The king, taken aback but attentive, responded carefully, according to the same source. "You speak with conviction, Catherine. Yet you must know how delicate this is. Family and duty are not easily separated." "Amen." To which Catherine replied, quietly but unmistakably, "I understand that, sir, but if the line between kin and crown fades, the crown itself loses meaning." Those words, insiders say, hung in the air like a verdict, not shouted, not demanded, but placed before the king with composure and clarity. Prince William was present throughout, standing beside his wife. He reportedly added only one sentence at the end of the meeting: "My wife speaks for both of us, and for the future we are entrusted to protect." According to aides, the king remained seated for several minutes after the couple left, visibly thoughtful. One long-serving courtier described him as a man torn between affection and responsibility. And sources inside the palace stressed that this was not an argument but a consultation, part of ongoing discussions about the ceremonial roles surrounding Catherine's forthcoming coronation. Yet the substance of her request, that Queen Camilla's children, Tom Parker Bowles and Laura Lopes, be formally distanced from royal functions, has reportedly unsettled the king's advisers. "It's the tone that made it impossible to ignore," another insider said. "She wasn't defiant, she was precise. She spoke like someone defending the institution, not her position." In the days following the conversation, subtle signs suggested the matter was being taken seriously. Internal calendars were reviewed, invitations quietly revised. Camilla's representatives, when contacted for comment, declined to confirm whether her family's roles had changed. At the same time, Princess Anne is understood to have voiced quiet support for Catherine's reasoning. According to a senior palace source, Anne told colleagues, "It isn't personal, it's constitutional. The monarchy survives by clarity, and Catherine has the clarity we once feared was gone." Publicly, both Kensington and Buckingham palaces maintain silence. Privately, aides describe a mood of unease mixed with respect. "No one expected Catherine to speak so directly," one courtier said. "But the way she did it left no room for criticism. She was composed, deferential, but utterly unmovable." Observers note that this development marks a subtle shift within the House of Windsor, a move from quiet adaptation to deliberate preservation. Royal commentator Evelyn Grant summarized it succinctly: "This isn't rebellion, it's reform by conversation." Catherine is defining what it means to modernize without surrendering tradition. For now, the palace corridors remain outwardly calm. There are no public statements, no visible signs of division. Yet those closest to the royal household sense that a historic line has quietly been drawn, not in anger, but in duty. And as one senior aide reflected tonight, looking out across the floodlit facade of Buckingham Palace, she didn't demand a change, she reminded them what the monarchy stands for. That's why everyone's listening. The question now echoing through the royal court is simple and impossible to ignore. Will King Charles honour his daughter-in-law's request, or protect the family he built at the cost of the crown's oldest rule. Royal insiders now suggest that Catherine's private appeal to the king was not born from a moment of frustration, but from months, if not years, of careful observation. Those close to her say she had grown increasingly concerned by the gradual shift in palace structure, where familiarity had begun to replace formality. She saw it happening quietly, one aide explained. What began as warmth and inclusion had become confusion, lines blurred, and Catherine believed it was her duty to restore balance before it was too late. The situation at the heart of her concern is now being referred to internally as the unofficial branch, a discreet but growing network of influence that, according to senior staff, revolved around Queen Camilla's family, most notably her children, Tom Parker Bowles and Laura Lopes. Neither Tom nor Laura hold royal titles, yet their presence at official events has increased steadily over the past few years. A senior courtier, speaking under anonymity, described the shift. It wasn't intentional overreach. It was comfort. They were included in family moments that became public moments, and that's where the issue started. At several events last year, Laura Lopes was seated alongside senior royals' positions, typically reserved for bloodline members. Her brother, Tom, a well-known food critic and author, reportedly provided informal advice on public relations and event coordination. He's clever, charming, very capable, one communications advisor said. But he's not royal staff, and that distinction matters. Within the palace, it was Princess Anne who noticed the pattern first. According to two senior sources, Anne privately warned a close aide. Tradition protects us from confusion. Once you confuse affection with authority, you risk both. It was that same philosophy instilled by her late mother, Queen Elizabeth II, that Catherine would later echo in her meeting with the king. She wasn't challenging anyone's worth, a longtime advisor to William and Catherine explained. She was articulating the rules that have kept this family intact for centuries. Those who have worked closely with Catherine describe her as deeply respectful of Camilla's position and of the king's affection for his wife. There was no hostility, said one senior aide. Her words were rooted in preservation, she said. We must protect the monarchy as an institution above ourselves. That line has stayed with everyone who heard it. Behind closed doors, however, some courtiers admit the situation had become increasingly awkward. Invitations were sometimes extended without clear approval. Event seating plans shifted subtly over time. During one rehearsal for a major service, Camilla's granddaughter was reportedly positioned before Princess Charlotte, prompting Catherine to take notice. It was only a few inches difference, said one observer. But symbolically, it spoke volumes. Oh, that incident, minor as it seemed, became the turning point. Catherine reportedly discussed the matter privately with Princess Anne the following day. According to a palace source, Anne's advice was characteristically direct. If you see the line fading, draw it again. That's what your position is for. In the weeks that followed, Catherine grew more deliberate in her oversight of ceremonial planning. She reviewed schedules, scrutinized guest lists, and requested clarity about who would take part in her forthcoming coronation. There was no argument, said a palace planner. She asked questions, she asked for definitions, and she did it with grace, but everyone understood the message. By the time she approached the king, the groundwork had already been laid. Her request was not a shock, it was the culmination of careful preparation. William, sources say, supported her quietly, ensuring that her position was seen not as defiance, but as foresight. Within palace walls, some now describe this phase as the quiet audit. It is said to be led jointly by Catherine and Anne, both determined to reaffirm the boundaries that define royal service. They are not excluding people, one insider clarified. They are restoring order. Still, the move has caused unease among those close to Camilla. One of her associates confided, "It feels like history repeating itself, another woman facing cold protocol. Camilla thought she'd earned peace, now she's watching it slip away." The palace has refused all comment on these reports, but staff who have served multiple generations say the atmosphere feels familiar. "It's Elizabethan in tone," one said. "Calm outside, decisive within." When Princess Anne steps forward and Catherine follows her rhythm, you know change is happening. Observers believe the alliance between the two women has become the monarchy's new center of gravity. One royal historian summarized it succinctly. "Anne represents endurance, Catherine represents evolution. Together, they're quietly rewriting the rules without ever breaking them." And while the public still sees polished appearances and polite smiles, those inside Buckingham know that the coming coronation will not just crown a queen, it will redefine what royal blood truly means. In the days following Catherine's discreet yet resolute meeting with the king, Buckingham Palace entered a kind of controlled silence. No public statements were made, no visible disruptions appeared, but those working behind the gilded gates described an atmosphere of contained anxiety, the kind that settles over the palace only when something irreversible has begun. According to several insiders, a series of coordination briefings were hastily scheduled. Officially, they were meetings to discuss ceremonial logistics ahead of the upcoming coronation. In reality, as one senior aide admitted, they were damage control sessions. Every department head was summoned: communications, protocol, security, even wardrobe. The purpose: to assess the implications of Catherine's request and decide how, or if, it could be implemented without fracturing the family's public image. Most strikingly, Queen Camilla was not included in these briefings. Her absence did not go unnoticed. Instead, her chair was filled by Princess Anne, who attended at the king's quiet insistence. A senior courtier present during one of the meetings later told us, "Anne didn't dominate. She didn't need to. When she speaks, people listen because she represents the spine of the institution. Her words carry the authority of precedent." Those who attended the first of these meetings say Anne set the tone early. She reportedly began by saying, "This isn't a matter of personalities, it's a matter of precedents. The monarchy survives because it knows where it begins and where it ends. Catherine is not questioning loyalty, she's safeguarding continuity." Her statement, delivered in Anne's familiar no-nonsense tone, drew murmurs of agreement from several senior officials, particularly those who had served under the late Queen Elizabeth II. As one advisor later explained, "Anne and Catherine are speaking the language of duty, not emotion. That's what the old guard understands." Meanwhile, Catherine maintained complete silence in public, continuing her engagements with a calm that belied the intensity of what was unfolding behind the scenes. Aides say she has not commented on the matter beyond her private conversation with the king. "She's aware of the sensitivity," said a source close to her office. "She believes dignity and restraint are the strongest forms of communication right now." King Charles, by contrast, is said to have been deeply introspective in recent days. "He understands his daughter-in-law's reasoning," one confidant said, "but he's torn. He knows Catherine's point upholds the crown, yet he also knows how much it wounds Camilla." In one reported exchange, the king told an aide, "I've spent a lifetime balancing the private with the public. Now they've become the same problem." Behind the scenes, subtle changes have already begun. Invitations for certain pre-coronation planning sessions have been revised, omitting Camilla's relatives from attendance. Staff, who once liaised with her household, are now directed to coordinate through Anne's office. "Everything is phrased as temporary," one official explained. But everyone knows these are structural changes. They won't be reversed. The communications team has been instructed to stay neutral but alert. Editors at the BBC and several national newspapers have confirmed that palace media officers have quietly requested restraint around coverage of Camilla's family, urging outlets to focus on the Wales's forward-looking agenda. The move, though presented as routine, signals a significant realignment in the palace's media strategy. Observers say Princess Anne's influence has become unmistakable. Her attendance at the briefings, has lent Catherine's position the weight of legitimacy. Anne isn't campaigning, noted royal analyst Hugh Dalton. She's interpreting the unwritten constitution. When she sides with someone, it's not political, it's institutional. The mood among senior aides has shifted from surprise to acceptance. Everyone understands now that this is the new direction, one senior official confided. It's not about removing anyone, it's about refocusing the monarchy on lineage, clarity, and respect for the crown's original structure. Still, not all are comfortable. A member of Camilla's household privately described the Queen Consort as hurt and isolated, saying she had retreated from public appearances under the guise of rest. The insider added, "She feels the walls closing in. She's aware decisions are being made without her, and that's a hard truth for any queen to face." For now, the palace remains outwardly composed. The spring receptions proceed, the charity visits continue, and the royal motorcades glide through London as if nothing beneath the surface has shifted. Yet within the marble corridors, aides whisper a phrase that has become the quiet slogan of this moment: "The crown is recalibrating." A recalibration led not by decrees or confrontation, but by two women whose authority stems from conviction rather than volume: Princess Anne, the keeper of tradition, and Catherine, the architect of its future. As one senior historian put it, it's the rarest kind of revolution, the kind performed in absolute silence. In the week that followed, Buckingham Palace seemed to function normally on the surface: smiling photo calls, glittering receptions, well-timed headlines. But those inside the palace knew that every quiet step, every scheduled meeting, every edited name on a document was part of something far larger than the public could see. Behind closed doors, a private conversation between Princess Anne and Catherine solidified what aides now call the alignment. It took place late one evening at Sandringham, in a sitting room lined with portraits of former queens. According to a senior household source, the meeting lasted nearly 2 hours, calm, private, and deliberate. Anne began the exchange in her usual tone, measured, practical, and without ornament. "You've done what had to be done," she reportedly told Catherine. "But remember, in this family, conviction must always sound like courtesy. We don't fight for the crown, we preserve it." Catherine, hands clasped in her lap, is said to have replied quietly, "I don't want division, Aunt Anne. I want clarity. We can't carry both sentiment and duty on the same shoulders forever. Something will break." Anne gave a faint nod. "It already has," she said. "Now it's our job to mend it properly." Insiders say this exchange marked the point when Anne officially stepped from silent observer to active guardian. She began attending planning sessions daily, her authority no longer symbolic but procedural. "Anne's presence changes everything," said one senior protocol officer. "When she speaks, even the king listens differently." Indeed, King Charles has grown increasingly reflective. At one recent dinner, overheard by a longtime aide, he was said to have murmured, almost to himself, "I wonder if this is what Mother felt. The loneliness of knowing the crown's needs always come first." According to two independent sources, a private meeting between the king and Anne soon followed. He sought her counsel in an attempt to steady the situation before it spiraled into open discord. "You think this will calm things?" he asked her. "It already is calming them," Anne replied firmly. "Catherine has not rebelled. She's reminded us what we stand for. If we ignore that, we invite chaos." The king reportedly sighed and said, "Camilla feels cornered," to which Anne responded, after a long pause, "Camilla feels what comes with the role. We all do, in our own way." Charles did not argue. According to a source present outside the room, the meeting ended with a long silence and the sound of the king pouring himself a glass of water before saying, softly, "Then so be it." In the following days, palace staff began to notice subtle but unmistakable changes. Aides, once loyal to Camilla's office, were quietly reassigned under Anne's supervision. Drafts of ceremonial seating plans bore discreet pencil marks, Initials AP and CW, denoting Anne and Catherine's joint oversight. The edits were small, said one planner, but they rewrote the story of who stood where. One source close to Catherine described her demeanour during this time as serene, but weighted. She continued her public engagements, hospital visits, children's charities, early childhood initiatives, but colleagues say her focus was absolute. She works like someone carrying a mission, not an ambition, one senior advisor observed. Still, whispers around Clarence House tell of Camilla's growing distress. A trusted friend recounted a phone call in which the Queen Consort confided, "I feel invisible in my own home. They're drawing the map without me." The friend claimed Camilla's tone was not angry, but wounded. She said she understood duty, she always has, but she never expected duty to erase her. Aides loyal to Camilla have begun referring to her shrinking public schedule as protective downtime. Yet within palace circles, everyone knows the truth. Her role is being slowly redefined, delicately, irreversibly. Royal historian Alastair Kent described the atmosphere best. It's a monarchical ballet, perfectly choreographed, entirely silent, and every movement tells you who truly holds the stage. At a recent internal review meeting, one of Catherine's secretaries asked her if she wished to issue any statement regarding the speculation surrounding internal changes. Her answer was brief but decisive. No. Silence is the strongest answer. It protects everyone. That line, according to those present, has since become something of a mantra among her team. She doesn't gloat, she doesn't brief, she doesn't react, said one aide. She simply lets order take shape. And as the preparations continue under Anne's watchful eye, one phrase reportedly circulates between the two women, a quiet reminder of purpose exchanged at the end of each private meeting. Anne: "We hold the line." Catherine: "Until it holds itself." Outside, the cameras flash, the palace gates gleam under spring sunlight, and the world waits for a coronation it still believes lies ahead. But those within the royal household know that the true coronation, the transfer of tone, power and principle, has already begun, not in ceremony, but in conversation. Inside Buckingham Palace tonight, the countdown to the coronation continues, at least officially. Behind closed doors, however, aides confirm that the ceremony for Princess Catherine's formal investiture as Queen Consort has not yet been approved, suspended in a rare state of royal hesitation. According to multiple sources, the event, initially scheduled to mark the next phase of the modern monarchy, has been temporarily deferred, while final ceremonial considerations are reviewed. But palace insiders tell a different story. They describe tense meetings, rewritten schedules, and a quiet tug-of-war between loyalty and legacy. One senior aide, speaking under condition of anonymity, said simply, "It's not cancelled, it's paused. Everyone is pretending to plan, but no one knows if the date will ever be confirmed." At the heart of the uncertainty lies Catherine's principled request, a call for renewed boundaries between the royal household and extended family. In particular, her appeal that Queen Camilla's children, Tom Parker Bowles and Laura Lopes, be formally distanced from royal duties remains unresolved. She meant no disrespect, an official close to her office explained. Her words were precise. "We must protect the crown from dilution, not people from inclusion. It was about preserving symbolism, not excluding family." Still, the issue has unsettled the king. Those close to him describe long hours spent in his study, pages of ceremonial notes spread across his desk. "He feels the weight of it," said a friend of the monarch. "Catherine's request is not rebellion, it's reason, but it forces him to choose between duty and devotion." And Princess Anne, meanwhile, has become the quiet stabilizer in the storm. Her attendance at recent planning sessions has increased notably. One senior official confirmed that Anne now reviews all ceremonial drafts for historical integrity. Another aide summarized her role: "If Charles's conscience and Catherine is conviction, Anne is calibration. During one such meeting last week, Anne reportedly addressed senior courtiers directly. The crown cannot afford confusion. The ceremony must honor lineage before affection. That's how it survives. Her words, according to several who were present, silenced the room. No one argues with Anne, one advisor said. She speaks the way the late Queen used to, quietly, but absolutely. For Catherine, the focus has remained on composure. At public engagements, she appears untroubled, smiling, polished, serene. But behind the scenes, she is said to be measured and firm, reviewing every aspect of the coronation's tone. She doesn't seek grandeur, said an aide. She wants clarity. She told us, it must feel sacred, not theatrical. Meanwhile, Camilla's absence from planning committees has grown conspicuous. Officially, her schedule has been reduced for rest and recovery, yet staff sources confirm her frustration. She feels isolated, one said. She asked, "How did I become a guest at my own table?" King Charles, according to two palace insiders, has tried to reconcile both sides. In one private exchange, reported by a trusted aide, he told his sister, "I want peace, Anne, not precedent." To which Anne replied evenly, "Precedent is peace, if you understand it." It was, as one observer noted, a line that ended the discussion. As of this week, official messaging remains consistent. No delays, no disputes, just ongoing coordination. Yet inside the palace, the mood is cautious. Staff move through corridors with the kind of deliberate calm that often precedes transformation. "We've entered what some call the waiting hour," said one veteran attendant. "Everything's ready, but no one knows what we're waiting for. What comes next depends on whether the king grants Catherine's request, a decision that could redefine both his reign and the monarchy's structure for generations. For now, the date remains blank, the invitations unprinted, and the crown, symbolically at least, suspended between two worlds. The one built by love, and the one held together by lineage. As one senior aide put it tonight, glancing toward the palace balcony lit faintly against the London sky, the coronation will happen only when the family decides which kingdom it truly serves, the heart or the heritage.